Welcome, Rida. You've scored a 730 with a Q49. How does it feel?
It feels great. It feels like the, all the effort I've put in has really paid off over the last couple of months. So it's great to see.
Of course, I mean, it has definitely paid off because I remember you started off with a score of 530 somewhere in the beginning of August. And then when you took the GMAT about, a week and a half back, you scored a 730. So that's a good, I would say, if I were to do the math correctly, 190-point improvement.
Yeah, that was great. Especially with my quant section, I saw an improvement from, I think, a Q32 to a 49. So that was extremely, gratifying to see, as well as also, of course, the improvement to a V41 from a 33.
No, of course. I mean, 190 points means that you've literally turned your life around and everything in the GMAT around as well. But yeah, Q32 to Q49. We're going to talk about that first. And of course, we're going to go to your verbal score and we're going to show your ESR as well. But let's talk about Quant a little bit first. You've done the course very diligently. You've done every single file with a diligence that I rarely see actually. Tell me what are the benefits of the quant course that you saw given. Talk a little bit about your background as well. Just give people
Yeah.
context.
Okay, so I think it's important to state that I don't come from a quant heavy background. I'm actually a humanities major who majored in psychology, sociology, and English. So doing the GMAT meant that I had to dive head back into my 12th grade maths all over again. So that was one thing that I was very apprehensive about going into GMAT prep as a whole. But what I really found helpful with the course itself was the way that it was structured. Each module, one, it addressed a small portion, so you were able to give your full attention to that. And it also started out with a diagnostic test, which was able to help me understand, one, where I'm going wrong, whether it's my conceptual clarity or my application skills. And two, it also allowed me to understand how much effort I'd have to put in to reach my target score. So that was really helpful.
Got it. And again, it's a very exhaustive course, but you mentioned I think the two most important parts of the course, right? Where you have the diagnostic, the course is literally helping you excel at just the things you need, exactly what you need. And of course, it's very, very comprehensive. Now we're going to go course by course, of course, because when you're sitting at a Q32, you're of course not great at arithmetic or algebra and geometry. So we'll start with arithmetic. And specifically word problems is a very big area that a lot of students struggle with. What did you find in the course that kind of really changed things for you?
One, I found that the way that the course teaches you to understand and visualize a word problem was extremely helpful, because when you see these problems, especially I think as an Indian student, you're immediately dragged back to the step-by-step process of applying a formula, figuring out the motion, all of that. But here you're using logic rather than just plain mathematics. So the way that the course taught me to apply that and apply the grid methodology to solve these problems saved me a lot of time and a lot of effort.
Yeah,
so that was really
I think that's true value, right? Because when you kind of are a student who's not very strong with quant, you don't have that kind of thing that just clicks in your head and you quickly go on to find the answer. You're actually just thinking about what is the first step, what is the second step, how do I get to the final end point. And I think of course that really helped you, and I'm really glad to hear that from you as well. Are there any concepts or things that in the course really stood out for you other than any of this?
In the linear equations and inequalities section, the part about the wavy line method, I think that was extremely helpful because you save a lot of time figuring out, what the answer is, what's that range, because otherwise it would have taken me an extremely long time. But that one, it made a lot of sense. So that's one thing that I really like about the courses as a whole. It doesn't just ask you to take a formula and apply it or memorize it. It teaches you why this works, the way that you can apply logic, even if you forgot for a set problem the exact formula, the logic behind the sets, so you can apply that and you can figure out what the answer is. So the wavy line method, that application of logic, those were highlights, I'd say.
Got it. Got it. I think again, there's no cheat codes to quant, and especially for a student who is not really has that kind of background, I think not having the quantitative background and having this course is true value there. Okay, so we talked about the wavy line method. We talked about the word problems course. Tell me about advanced topics, because even the good guys, even the really smart people or folks on quant struggle with that. How did you find that?
That was, I think actually that was one of my favorite parts of the course because it was extremely interesting, especially permutations and combinations. I found that part to be extremely like intellectually challenging, and that's something that I found was, allowed me to sort of apply and learn a lot easier. So I think that, again, it's an advanced topic, but it doesn't become, that hard for you to learn if you're able to follow the logic that you're teaching. If that's the thing that holds true for anything in the GMAT course and learning for the GMAT in general. If you understand the logic, application, and then getting the answer is relatively easy.
So, okay, you did the course really well, and of course the course helped, but there is the secret formula that you used, of course, over and above the course. What was it? Tell me more about it.
Okay, I'd say that's my use of the error logs. So the way that I didn't actually realize that the error logs existed for a while until I'd gone onto the Scholaranium and I saw the little button. But it teaches you how to sort of take in what you've gotten right and what you've gotten wrong, and really dig deep into why you've gotten wrong, where you've gone wrong. It teaches you that there's no such thing as a silly mistake. There's always a reason. Either you're not, which is a silly mistake, I think is a very Indian sort of typical high school term, but it teaches you that there's no space for that here. It's either that you've not spent enough time understanding and reading the question, or you don't know this topic well enough, or you're not considering all the scenarios, manipulating all the variables. These are the core skills that you're missing and that you need to learn again. So
Okay.
that, I think, without the error log, I wouldn't have gotten where I got to.
Got it. We're going to talk a little bit more about the error log, but just before that, very, very gratifying moment for me, because I write so many emails daily to people when they drop us an email saying, I made a silly mistake. And I do quant as well. I think there is nothing called a silly mistake because there's just there's copying errors. That's not really a silly mistake per se. But let's talk a little bit more about your error log so that you give people an insight into how you made it, what are the key elements, and how did you really use that quant error log?
Yeah. So I started error logs actually first for the verbal section, which is the part that I'd done first. Yep. So that gave me an idea of, so I followed a lot of that same format into my quant error log. So I had the question, and then I had the answer that I'd chosen, and then I had the correct answer. And then in my first step of analysis, I'd identify where I went wrong. Was it a process error, or was I missing some sort of, skill in the step-by-step process? And in the next, I'd have to introspect into why I made the mistake I did. Did I think that, maybe I had considered all the cases? Did I miss something there? Did I manipulate the variables incorrectly? Or maybe it was just a copy error that I'd made this one time. But identifying all of those was important to stay, focused on the task at hand and also improve, wherever I was falling short.
Got it. And how much time did it take to, like, let's say, just analyze one question, for example?
So I would analyze. So I usually do the error analysis after every test. So I do the process file, and then in the process file, you're required to go through all the explanations.
Yeah.
So at the same time, I would be simultaneously, one half of my screen would be the video, one half would be my Excel sheet where I'd be filling in where I'd gone wrong. So it's a simultaneous process. If you leave it to later, one, you won't remember why you went wrong. And two, it'll seem like a much larger task than it actually is. It's just another, I'd say, minute or two of effort on your side when you're doing it as you're studying.
Got it.
So, yeah.
That's spot on. I mean, someone who is actually seeing this might feel that this is a little bit tailored or doctored, but this really isn't. The kind of insights that I'm getting from you are like absolutely perfect for me because um, this kind of shows me the reason why you're sitting at a 7:30 today because you've given that amount of thought to everything you did. Having said that, I don't want to take away the glamour from your V41 as well. You've improved by a fair amount there as well, and it's very very commendable. Let's talk a little bit about the verbal course as well. What helped you? What are the things you learned?
I think so. I knew going into verbal that my critical reasoning was most likely where
Yeah,
I would have an issue. So one, I realized that it would be unlikely that I'd be able to hit an extremely high percentile there, but that I could leverage the other two, which is SC and RC, to reach a better score. That isn't to say that I gave up on what do you say, reasoning,
reasoning. Yeah,
but rather that I leveraged the skills that I knew already had, which I think is reflected really well in the ESR.
it is. It
It
is.
admittedly the CR is a little embarrassing for me personally, but it's also gratifying to see the other two sections.
Got it.
So speaking about the SC in particular, I think the way that it's structured in the course was really helpful to me, and especially because it it's rules for grammar and for meaning. You follow those rules, you won't go wrong. And RC is all about, I think that my background helped there because I'm used
Yeah,
to reading and absorbing a lot of content very quickly, both as as an English student, but as also as a psychology student. So making those connections in a way, my background helped there. But again, it's not a difficult skill to acquire if you are able to put in the effort. When I started, it definitely wasn't as easy as I make it seem. But I was able to, take the time. You start off slow in RC, especially. You don't start off reading the passage in a minute or two. Or actually three. You take 3 minutes to read a passage, even in a GMAT setting. You start off taking 7 to 8 minutes, figuring out your note-taking process, figuring out the way that you read the passage to optimize your outcome. So again, even though my background is humanities, I wouldn't say that that gave me a huge advantage over anyone else.
got it. I think I was just talking to Prateek a few days back, and you may not have seen the interview, but he also had a largely qualitative background, right? And of course, to some extent, that does help with comprehension and verbal because you read faster and you read better, and that is something that can be inculcated as well. But what you said about note making and you taking time over it. A lot of people feel that, oh my God, I spent 4 minutes, 5 minutes, I'm running out of time. Let me just skip this, skim it, and then go to the question. What they don't realize is that they will have to come back to the passage and they will waste
Yeah.
time doing that. So, very, very good insight there. Um, at this point, I'm going to show everybody your ESR, but before I do that, um, we're going to talk about your starting ability on SC and RC. If I'm not wrong, your SC starting ability was the 28th percentile, sorry, 63rd percentile. So I'm going to show your Sigma X mock here as well to make it more believable, right? That, oh my God, this
I'm so
person,
sorry.
yeah,
I'm so sorry. Yeah, I think you're back now.
yeah,
Okay.
I'm back now. Perfect, perfect.
Yeah.
So can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Perfect. So this is your starting ability in verbal, of course. You've improved 9 points here. 63rd on SC, 36th
Yeah.
on CR, and 80th on RC. So of course, RC was always good. RC was always good,
Yeah.
and that's a no-brainer for me. And let's also show people where you were at Quant. You were at a Q33, and no shame here now. No shame here now because
Yeah.
you're sitting at a
No, no.
Q49, and that's
Yeah.
phenomenal. And this kind of shows everybody here that it's very easily doable. Now from here, we're going to go to your ESR. So drum roll, and we'll build up to this, and here you go. So essentially, this is phenomenal, Rida, because I very, very rarely see 99th percentile on SC. We send it out in emails to a lot of people that, this XYZ student scored 99th, but it does happen. But again, it's very, very rare. And it's good to see because that's how the SC course is built. frankly. I'm just going to go out and say that. And that basically means you got pretty much everything right on SC. And it's very difficult from a person who's actually done SC myself. I think getting every question right in SC is truly brilliant. Of course, now CR has improved like a tad bit. That's good. That's good to see as well. And what I want to show people here is your timing stats as well, because these kind of add up to why you scored a V41, and we kind of do that analysis together. You didn't overspend time on CR questions. Very, very important. You knew that, this is what I know. I'm just going to move on from this because I'm anyways not going to do well. So great strategy there. You went through passages properly. I think you would have taken notes here. And since you're a fast reader, I think you've taken 1 minute 30. Usually people take about 1 minute 45. And 1 minute 24 is usually the perfect amount of time for SC questions. And if this is the average that it takes to get 100%, then that's just phenomenal. In terms of, yeah, go ahead.
No, coming back to the SC, I think what people don't understand here is that if you know the rules and if you're focused on understanding the meaning, it's not as hard as it seems to be. And that's something that, that's also where my log sheet, I think for my verbal section, I kept a log sheet most diligently for the SC portion. And I also took notes most diligently for the SC portion while I was studying. You have to put in that effort, so 1 second, let me hear. Okay. This 300-page notebook is all the notes that I took for this entire course. And wow. The most notes I've taken are all for SC from the course. Okay. So what I'm trying to say is that what you learn is enough if you're willing to internalize those lessons, and also if you're willing to put in the effort to learn in the first place. Because I think it would have been really easy for me, and it was really easy for me in the beginning to believe that because of my background, I would have been fine, but I'm a competitive person, and I wanted to be really good. And two, I was able to acknowledge that I needed the help. Okay, and I think that if anyone wants to take away one thing from this entire, debrief that we're doing, is that there is no shame in taking help to reach your goals, because that investment right now, if I hadn't invested in the course, I would have been stuck maybe at like a 650 from that progression from August to September, right? So it's important to really look into yourself and acknowledge whether you need help and where you need help. That's extremely important, I think.
Got it. And it's 540, not even 650. I mean, that was just phenomenal just to see. God, I still can't believe it. But I still can't believe you actually have written a book on SC. Your notes, 300 pages, pretty much how long most other books are on SC. So
no, this isn't just SC. This is the entire everything that I know about the GMAT is not including my rough notes, but the most I've written about any single subject is definitely the SC. I think at least 100 pages.
Wow.
Okay. Examples, rules, exceptions, all of those. And I didn't go really beyond the course. I think that's also important to find out, because one, I didn't have the time. The amount of time that I'd set for myself to finish, learning and according to the plan meant that I didn't really have a lot of time left to look at any other source. So what I do know is mainly from, again, the course.
Got it.
Like you saw that I'd started from the beginning for every course. So that means, I had to, from what a noun is to how to fix a modifier error, it's all there.
Got it. No, I think that's the diligence that a lot of people don't realize. So in a lot of interviews, of course, people talk about their improvement, stuff like that, but that notebook is testament to the kind of work that goes on in the background, even after you use the course. And that's very important. We should not, discount that at all. Back to your ESR, this is something that I kind of wanted to show everybody. I mean, if you want to score well on verbal, getting, of course, the accuracies that you've achieved. You've gotten a few easy-ish questions wrong, but that didn't set you back. A lot of people feel this way, that, if I get a few questions wrong here, I'm gone. But you kind of improved upon that. And the good part here was that you started getting these really hard questions wrong. And they're most probably in CR itself, because most of the questions you've gotten wrong are in CR. So there's no doubt about that. But if I look at the timings that you've taken in the first 3 blocks, you had more than enough time for the last block as well. And I think you finished way before time too, from what I can tell over here. At least I would say 3 or 4 minutes early, or you would have had enough time towards the end.
Actually, I think I only had a minute or so left towards the end. I kept a strong eye on the clock, but I also, I didn't rush through one, but I didn't have a lot of time left at the end. I think I had only a minute or two left.
A minute or two on verbal, by the way, is like phenomenal. Like I'm not even kidding you. A lot of people say about Quant that I had so much of time left. I've never heard anybody say it about verbal. So again, that's testament to the work that you've put in. And look at your ASR now. So from what you had scored in arithmetic, so I'm going to go back to your account here, 29th and 15th percentile to essentially 84th and 73rd percentile. So I think it was improvement across all directions, across 2 different kinds of questions. And it's very nice to see that you've gotten data sufficiency questions right, because these are the harder kinds of questions on the test. That's something I noticed as well. And again, you've done the right thing here. You start off slow. You try to get as many questions as you got right. And again, this is testament to show that it's not a certain number of questions that you need to get right or wrong to score a Q49. You can do it with any split, right? So I think very nice to see, Rida. I think very, very gratifying to see one of our students really use the course inside out, improve in such short time. But again, let's not discount the effort that you've put in the background as well for the course, and so on and so forth. Any parting words that you would like to share with everybody, or anyone who wants to score a 730 plus on the GMAT?
I think you need to be honest with yourself. I think that's the most important step going in to the entire preparation, is you need to be honest with yourself at every single step of the way. You can't do a question wrong and then think, oh, my mood was bad or I was distracted. You don't have the space for that when you're studying for the GMAT, because you're not looking at getting 96% of the questions right. You're looking at being better than 96 of other test takers.
True.
And they're not going to be thinking that, the ones who reach that high aren't going to be thinking that I was being silly or I was being distracted. They're going to analyze their mistakes. So your error analysis, your honesty to yourself, those are extremely key to achieving a good score on the GMAT, I think.
Okay, well said. I'm not going to add anything to that. Usually I do, but I am not going to add anything to that. That's absolutely spot on as always. Thank you so much, Rida, and all the best for your future aspirations.
Thank you so much.